Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Purrs in Heaven for the Nintendo Switch. And if you're thinking, "Aw, cute cat game, I can totally play this with my girlfriend or with my kids," you might want to hang on to your seats, because this little black cat Lanna has been playing a little too close to the danger zone and got herself hit by a car and sent up to see a god named Yama. And thankfully the god Yama isn't a total stickler for the rules, because he tells Lanna that there's actually a way she can find her way back if that's really what she wants to do. Yama tells our little main character that upon death her soul is divided into 3 pieces, and she'll have to work her way through 30 levels, defeating 3 bosses and a slew of different types of puzzles in order to retrieve the pieces, put together her whole soul, and then walk herself back out of those pearly gates. And while this would potentially be a completely impossible task for a tiny little kitten, Yama has also blessed her with the ability to generate 7 different soul clones. You'll have the ability to jump, and that's pretty much it. So it'll be up to you to place your little clone cats wherever you can, to use them as stepping stools and pedestals, to bridge gaps, ascend to new heights, and otherwise just navigate yourself around traps. And while the gaming tutorial cards in the first couple levels really aren't that helpful, by the time you get into levels 4 or 5, you'll pretty much have taught yourself all of this gaming dynamic all on your own. One of the interesting things about Purrs in Heaven that does take a little bit of getting used to is the checkpoint system. Where most games would have checkpoints to reset you after a death, in Purrs in Heaven the checkpoints are actually more of like a recall button. After laying a clone, you will reappear automatically at the last checkpoint, with most levels having 1 or 2, and you'll proceed from said checkpoint all the way to the end of the level. But if you do manage to get attacked by one of the game's minions, fall onto some spikes, or just fall off of the puzzle itself, you'll also be respawned at one of the game's checkpoints, but all of your cat clones will disappear. Meaning that, yes, if you take a hit or take damage, you are going to be resetting all of your progress towards solving that puzzle. Thankfully though, Purrs in Heaven does have 2 difficulty modes. The normal difficulty mode, which is insanely difficult the further you get into the game, and easy mode, which is only slightly less difficult. Easy mode doesn't really change anything about the game, except for the fact that when you die or take damage and you have to reset at a checkpoint, all of the cat clones that you had previously laid stayed where they were. Which does essentially mean it takes a lot less time, because you will maintain your progress, and instead of only having 7 cat clones, you essentially have an infinite number. As I mentioned before though, there are 30 levels in the game, with 10 devoted toward recovering each soul piece. And if you've noticed in the game footage over my shoulder, occasionally you will see a small little fish on the screen. And it's these fish that kind of go toward points, as well as buying certain perks at certain rest points that you'll find along the way. But as this cat clone platforming dynamic is actually pretty simple and very straightforward, that does about do it for game mechanics. Moving on to the game's visuals, Purrs in Heaven is absolutely adorable. Everything about it, the way they animated the cat's movements, its motions, and the animations for the other characters are really, really well done. The levels themselves and the transitions between levels are also something that really caught me by surprise for such a simple game. And I'd have to say that everything about Purrs in Heaven, from my first impressions, from the eShop description, and all the way through, say, my first hour and a half playing the game, I absolutely loved it. But I did play the game for more than an hour and a half. Much more, actually. Because Purrs in Heaven is beautiful, and it's adorable, and it's a great premise, but there's just some stuff that just weren't quite ironed out before it was released on the Switch. The mini games that I made brief note of are mostly rhythm-based, and unfortunately the rhythm has a good amount of lag, and just figuring out what to do is kind of a test of trial and error. The learning curve in the game as well is not really a learning curve, it is a learning spike. It'll be a progressive difficulty all the way up to the first boss, and then from then on for the rest of the game is just a straight uphill march. And I will be perfectly honest, I did play through the game on both normal and easy mode, and easy mode doesn't really make it that much easier. Which brings me to another point: you can't change difficulty levels mid-game. You have to start over, erase your progress, and then start the new difficulty level. Which means if you do make it 3/4 of the way through the game and decide that you just can't pass this puzzle and you'd like to try it on an easier setting, well, there goes your game. But being completely honest, even with that difficulty, even with the huge difficulty spike and the somewhat clunkiness of the side minigames, Purrs in Heaven was still really, really fun, and I really enjoyed playing it. Until I found a pretty game-breaking bug. In one of the later levels, and I guess what we could call the second chapter, I had made it finally, all the way through the puzzle, and I had finally navigated this crazy system of spikes to get to that little door in the perfect amount of time. And then the door disappeared, and I was just sitting there staring at an empty level. And after that much frustration just trying to make it to the end of the level after like 100 attempts, I kinda just put the game away for a little while. But even after that, looking back at Purrs in Heaven, despite the massive levels of frustration, the incredible difficulty spike, the game-breaking bug that caused me to just turn off the game and walk away, I do still really like the game and the concept. I don't like playing it. But if the developer actually sees this video, which I hope they do, and they put out a patch, this will be a really, really fun game. Unfortunately though, right now it's just at a level of polish that it turns most of the things that would be satisfaction into grumbling frustration. And unless you're going to find it on sale for probably around the 99-cent range, I probably wouldn't recommend it too terribly highly. But anyway, on that somber note, which I do apologize for, I hate doing negative reviews, that does about wrap up the review of Purrs in Heaven now on the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed this review, or especially if you saw the game on the eShop and you found this review particularly helpful, feel free to throw me a comment or a like to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. Because there are new and unique indie games coming out literally every single day, and whether it's an easy hard pass or an absolutely unforgettable gem, chances are you're going to find out about it right here. And as a final note, we are a pretty tiny little channel, so every like, every comment, and especially every subscription at this point in our growth really, really do matter. But if you like the Budget Gamer channel, if you love what we do here providing much needed media coverage to really, really underrepresented indie games, you can actually help us make these reviews by joining our small crew of Patreons. They help me purchase the games, help me decide which ones to review, give me some pretty insightful feedback, and as a bonus, they get a heads up on which reviews are coming out next and get early access to watch them all before they're published. But anyway, this has been the Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.